So, trailer 2 is probably just round the corner. But before we get into today's video, trying to get to 20,000 subscribers, so if you would just take a second to subscribe, it's massively appreciated. So Take-Two Interactive have just announced when their next earnings call is going to be. Now, for those that don't know, an earnings call is essentially where Take-Two Interactive talk to all of their investors and round up the end of the year or whichever quarter has just passed. So for example, the earnings call that's taking place on the 16th of May will serve two purposes: to round up quarter 4 of fiscal 24 and of course to give predictions for fiscal 25. Now the last earnings call, which was February the 8th, which was quarter 3 2024 Take-Two Interactive Software Inc. earnings conference call, mouthful. That earnings call was probably a middle ground one. That didn't really serve too much purpose to us as viewers anyway, to let us know what was happening within Take-Two. It was probably the most vague earnings call from any corporate business I've ever heard. But going back to the quarter 2 call that they had on November the 8th, it was actually on November the 8th that Sam Houser took to Twitter to let us know that we were going to be receiving trailer 1 for GTA 6 in early December. Now the reason why Sam Houser made this announcement on social media wasn't because the November the 8th was just a good day to do it, it was because of this earnings call. With this being announced, it allowed the earnings call to consist of content that otherwise wouldn't have been able to have been discussed. This post on Twitter enabled Take-Two Interactive to actually open up in this conference call and talk to investors and talk about what their plans are for one of their biggest businesses, Rockstar Games, and of course Grand Theft Auto 6, or as they described it back then, the next entry into the GTA series. Now why is this call on the 16th of May so important? But before we get into that, I'd like to say a massive thank you to today's video sponsor, Private Internet Access. So one of the worst things when playing online is having loads of lag and latency and having some of your friends glitching out while playing. This has happened now especially a few times when we've been recording, and it's so annoying. But it's also important to be private when using the internet. But at the same time, there should never ever be a compromise for privacy and internet speed. But with today's video sponsor Private Internet Access, you can use their VPN to not only stay private online, but achieve really fast internet speeds, which is really important when it comes to gaming. Now, if you're based in the US and you decided that you want to use a VPN, you want to stay private online, you don't want people to access your IP address or anything like that, you can change your location to one of their 50 US states. So rather than having to ping to the other side of the world, you can ping to a nearby state whilst remaining completely anonymous and private and still maintaining a really fast internet speed. Obviously, I like to stay anonymous online, so I use Private Internet Access all the time. Even when using my Meta Quest 3, I'm using Private Internet Access. I'm just doing it through a hotspot, so I can not only get fast internet connection, but I'm also protecting my privacy. And as you can tell, that's pretty important to me. If you want to save yourself 83% off and get 4 months completely free, click the link down below. It only works out at about $2.03 a month. Insanely cheap. So why is this particular call so important? Well, of course, it's a summary of fiscal 24. It's going to round up the year, everything that's happened within Take-Two Interactive, and summarize maybe some of the areas that they need to change their investment strategy, and maybe discuss some of the areas where they've decided to save costs. For example, recently we've heard that Take-Two Interactive are going to implement a load of redundancies. And by the way, I've done a full video about that. This is nothing to do with Rockstar Games. They're actually making people redundant from some of the other Take-Two Interactive businesses, such as Zynga, for example. But the other purpose of this quarter 4 Take-Two Interactive Software earnings call is actually to give predictions for fiscal 25. Now, when it comes to the end of the quarter, the end of the quarter is actually the 31st of March, but they have to have a month to collect all their data, to report their findings, and of course file everything with the US government, as well as the various governments that they trade in throughout the rest of the world. So that's why the call's happening in May as opposed to April. But the core focus is going to be giving their predictions for what happens for the next year, or at least the next year and beyond, which is something they really like to reference throughout their earnings calls, in particular their last earnings call, where everything was about the next 6 months, next 12 months, and beyond. They love that word.
To infinity and beyond!
Now, one of the core issues we have here is that one of Take-Two Interactive's biggest individual properties, which is Rockstar Games, of course leading back into GTA 6, is at the moment under a lot of secrecy. Of course, we don't know anything, and these earnings calls are listened to publicly. You can literally click the webcast presentation and listen to it live as it's happening, or even go back now and listen to previous earnings calls. But because it's public information, public knowledge, and obviously it's a publicly trading company, they can't just announce what they're doing for the next 12 months, especially in regards to GTA 6 and Rockstar Games, whilst Rockstar Games are remaining being quiet on the topic. It makes it very, very difficult for Take-Two Interactive to be open and honest. So I'm expecting at some point between now and the 16th of May, that's the most likely period for us to get trailer 2 or pre-orders or a definitive release date or all of the above. Now this isn't me saying 100% confirmed that we're going to get it around this time period, but the earnings calls are usually around the sort of times that Rockstar make announcements or any of the other businesses that Take-Two own make announcements, because it's really difficult for Take-Two Interactive to actually be able to give feedback to investors in this public forum whilst Rockstar are remaining so secretive about everything they're doing. So in my opinion, May the 16th 2024 or some point just before that is when we're most likely going to receive trailer 2. That's if we're to assume we're getting it at any point in the next couple of months. Alternatively, it could be in the summer because the theme, the vibe, the aesthetic of Miami or Vice City is of course a very summery and upbeat and bright vibe. Maybe they'll try and tie it into the summer festivities. But that being said, May is not too far off the summer anyway. That's only really a month or so out from being the summer. So I think May is probably the most likely time we're going to be receiving trailer 2. But of course, as always, I'm very keen to hear what your thoughts are down below. And there's one more thing I want to say in this video. I'm getting a lot of questions from people saying that best leaks on GTA 6 Instagram or whatever it is. All of these dodgy pages are making claims that about new information's come to light. And I'm getting so many questions about this. Now, I'm not telling you what sources you should or shouldn't trust, but please remember, a lot of people out there trying to get clicks. As you can tell from my videos, I'm pretty much straightforward with how I approach these topics. I don't just post a screenshot, say it's a leak, and then expect you to believe me. I try to articulate and explain all of my points in my videos, so please be careful what you believe on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and a massive thank you to Private Internet Access for sponsoring, and I'll see you all in the next one.